Welcome aboard. This is the Miles to Go podcast. And now here's your host, Ed Pizza.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Miles to Go podcast. Mr. Kerr joins me this week, though a bit slower than normal as he hobbles around from a recent pickleball injury, which we will get into in much more detail as we get deeper into the show. But we'll be joined momentarily by a special guest returning to the show, Kyle Potter of Thrifty Traveler, who is here to talk a little bit about what we've been seeing from a trend standpoint with a lot of interesting award availability this summer. And as they are sponsoring the show, we're also going to talk about a new product that they are in the process of launching right now that has me pretty geeked up. Mr. Kerr, tell me, how is the leg? Do you feel like you're going to be able to functionally podcast on just one leg?
I know we'll be airing everybody's personal laundry out here on the Miles to Go podcast. Although I guess
is this your first week? I mean, come on, man.
Yes, it's the tale as old as time. I wasn't even actually doing anything particularly arduous last Friday evening when I reached for a pickleball shot and felt the horrifying pop, or it feels like somebody kicked you. I thought somehow my son, who was watching the match, had gotten on the court and somehow he accidentally kicked me in the calf, and unfortunately ended up being a torn calf muscle. So, guess we're down for the summer. We'll figure this out. Pretty bummed, actually. At least I don't have to go to New York. Oh, wait. That should be fun.
Yeah, my wife was saying, as she was talking about ways to help you through this injury, she was saying that you could get one of those little carts that you kneel on as you go through the airport, and I could not stop laughing thinking about you pedaling through the airport.
Yeah, backpack, cart, somehow pulling a carry-on, somehow getting on the plane, somehow getting that cart through the subway. Like, I don't know, man. We'll figure it out.
I truly believe that your subway days are taking the summer off. That's what I truly believe.
Oh, I would agree, man. But like Lyft these days from just the hotel to the office is going to be $40, and if it's raining, it's going to be, it's wild, man. I don't know. We'll figure it out as we go. It's only been a few days here, so we'll keep going.
Still much more exciting than the pound and a half piece of firewood that I was picking up when I threw up my back a couple months ago. So I think the pickleball injury is at least a little bit sexier than that.
Nothing gets the ladies going like a good pickleball story. Yeah.
All right, a little bit of housekeeping before we bring Kyle on. For folks that are just tuning in, you can text us or leave us a voicemail, 571-293-6659. If you're watching us on YouTube, and if you're triggered by the fact that apparently Mr. Kerr's hat is not perfectly straight on his head, make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube. That way people can follow the show. Hitting subscribe on YouTube and liking us on whatever podcast platform you're on, those are things that help us spread the show further. And of course, we'd love to bring this brand of shtick to every household in America and points far, far beyond. Mr. Kerr, I'm going to hold off on recapping our Disney trip just a bit, but let's just say, like you from earlier June, I will say it was really, really hot in Orlando. Can you believe that?
I can't believe that.
More on that for a future recap. But we did discover a new restaurant at Disney Springs that was a very tasty Wine Bar George, which I'll have to talk a little bit more about.
You discovered it? Your claim has never been seen before until you're taking claim for that?
I've never seen it before. I'm saying I've never seen it before. I'm saying I'm a bit behind the times, Mr. Kerr. So
Ed Pizzarello staking his claim on discovering Wine Bar George here for everybody else. All right. Hey, man, that's fine.
And Mr. Humor himself, Mr. Kerr Points, can be found on social media at Kerr Points. I am at Pizza in Motion on all those same social media channels, and the show is Miles to Go Podcast on Instagram and TikTok. And returning to the show, Mr. Kyle Potter. Kyle is of Thrifty Traveler fame, and if I remember correctly, I think the last time you were on, Kyle, we were talking about COVID, and you had just come back from an all-inclusive, and I want to say it was the Hyatt all-inclusive, maybe in Punta Cana, but it was a while ago.
That was like 2020, 2021, Kyle. This is a different person. I'm a much more broken man than I was.
Broken man.
So I got nothing for you on whatever that trip was.
You'll fit right in here with me, who can't really stand straight right now, Mr. Kerr, who's one-legged. So broken men appear to be the theme of the show here in June, July, and August of 2024.
That might get some different listens if you just rename it Three Broken Men.
That's true.
You'll expand your audience, I think.
Yeah. Well, we definitely would be able to target some different keywords. That's for sure. Yes.
Well, we do like to get vulnerable here on the Miles to Go podcast from time to time.
Don't give Jeremiah another excuse to add music to the background. He's in the background right now asking me for B-roll footage. All I need is for him to get another excuse to add some sappy music to the background. So Kyle, we got you on for two reasons this week. One, we've been talking about Thrifty Traveler with you guys being a sponsor of the show, and just some of the deals that we keep seeing on a weekly basis that seem like a little bit more plentiful than normal. And then after that, we want to talk about the new product that you guys have launched recently, but starting with the fact that things have been so plentiful, I know like in the beginning, it almost, like I remember Richard saying at one point, it was like, well, like I guess there's some extra inventory around, Paris and the Olympics, and maybe people aren't, hopping on planes to go to Paris because they're worried about the crowds. And then like other deals just kept, I wouldn't even say trickling out, but it just feels like there's more out there than I remember from previous summers.
Yeah, I think unquestionably there is. And look, like I think a lot of people in this world, myself included, are pretty negative, and it's easy to bemoan, the deals that died and the sweet spots and loopholes that got closed. But I think bigger picture, if you step back, when one door closes, another one opens. And a lot of doors have been opening recently. And I think the thing that stands out most is just how unprecedented the amount of business class award space to Europe, in particular in summer, there has been so far this year. I mean, summer is well underway, and, we are still finding award space on, a lot of the major airlines flying to and from the US and Europe. Things that, even a year ago, you couldn't find anything. You could not find many, if any. You would have to, it was the quintessential needle in a haystack. You got to, reposition to Cincinnati or Detroit in order to get 2 seats. And if you have a family of 4, you got to get them to Boston to fly to London via Lisbon. It's stuff like that. That's what a lot of what this was like this time last year. And, we again and again and again keep finding business class award space for 2 or more. Even in July and August. It's pretty crazy, and it's something worth celebrating, I think.
Give us a quick hit. So, and I routinely talk about the Flying Blue deals that have popped up, but kind of if you could just put you on the spot here, but like, hey, the next 5 programs after Flying Blue, or if there's one that you've seen above Flying Blue that keeps releasing Saber space.
Flying Blue is definitely the big one, no question. And the 1-2 punch of, there being regular award space. Oh, and by the way, they also made it cheaper within the last, 9 months or so. Pretty amazing, again, unprecedented. But beyond that, American has been pretty reliable with some tasty Saver award rates in rates that, we haven't seen in a couple of years. United has been pretty reliable with releasing Polaris award space that you can book with all of their different partners, again, through the summer. Aer Lingus, it might not be the world's best business class seat, but if you're going nonstop to Dublin, they've got a lot of routes to fly, and I'm not going to connect through London or Paris or Amsterdam or whatever just to fly in a better seat. That's pretty tough to beat.
You don't want the old Reykjavik stopover there on Iceland here on the way to
No, I'll pass because I don't want to go out and drink a $21 beer during my stopover.
I think you're describing New York City now.
And then the last one, ITA Airways, just having the ability to fly nonstop to Rome and being able to book that with transferable credit card points. Again, when I say when one door closes, another one opens, I just went through about 4 different doors that have opened within the last year or so. It's pretty incredible.
Is it ITA, or did they come out and say it's ITA? What's the word from the expert here?
I will refuse to recognize anything other than ITA, much the same as I refuse to call it X. It's just Twitter. Let's live with it.
Hey, that's the United Nations answer right there. Mr. Kyle has spoken.
I believe the correct pronunciation is Alitalia.
Ooh, there you go.
No, but Ed, I think you do need to say that with an Italian accent. You in particular need to.
Yeah. Then we can talk about all your miles on TWA.
For the benefit of your listeners.
Alitalia. I was able to successfully ticket Alitalia twice for Richard, our friend Lauren from Disney's honeymoon trip, and no big issues doing it either way. So used once. Actually, both were sort of intra-Europe flights, but they were super cheap. In fact, I think I booked one of them through Virgin, maybe. Anyway, I think it's a great extra opportunity that I hadn't seen in previous summers. And to Kyle's point, I started our summer Japanese trip planning on a Thrifty Traveler deal that came through on, for JAL service out of DFW. And then ultimately, United opened up not only Polaris inventory, but they opened up PN space, upgrade space for me as a global services to switch to a nonstop at a Dulles, so I didn't even have to position. I don't recall either of those things happening in previous summers. It's been a lot harder to navigate that sort of stuff.
So we've got the what, but Kyle, what do you think is the why? Why are we seeing this versus is revenge travel dead? Are people out of cash? Are airways begging for money? Or is it a much rosier picture about why we get to enjoy such wonderful fruits and flowers?
I think it's a little bit of everything, but primarily I see it just as supply and demand, and supply is higher. And what we've seen is, so think back this time last year when, transatlantic travel just completely exploded and you couldn't really find much award travel at all to Europe, in particular at the front of the plane, but economy was a lot tougher than it is this year too. This summer it's changed. It's easier than it's been. I don't want to say ever, that would probably be a stretch, but it's easier than it's been in at least a few years. And so I think what we see here is that the availability lags the capacity. So, airlines keep adding more flights, more planes, more daily frequencies on bigger planes as they upgauge over to Europe. Now they're at a point where, they've probably gone a little bit further than what they can fill at the front of the cabin, and they start releasing those seats. I think we've started to see, and not to quite the same extent, but we've started to see the same thing happen, heading over the Pacific, over to Asia. So, we've started to see Cathay Pacific, which for the last couple of years has been incredibly stingy with allowing people to book business class, in large part because they weren't really flying. But in the last couple of months, we've sent a handful of alerts for Cathay Pacific business class. Same goes for Singapore, where, you can book the longest flight in the world from New York to Singapore in business class, which by God you need, because it's 19 damn hours. You can book that pretty regularly now, whereas, just a couple of years ago, that wasn't really the case. So there's a lot to love in the award travel space right now.
Make sure you get that front row footwell there on Singapore if you're going to be for 19 hours. Otherwise, those of us who are not as small as Ed are going to be a little bit uncomfortable on that.
Thank you.
I'll throw the other thing in there.
You just need to prop your one leg up, your one bum pickle leg up, then you're fine.
Pickle leg, that's what it is. That's what I'm start calling it now. I got a pickle leg. I'll add one thing just from insights that I gained from the day job about what we're seeing here, specifically the moves that Flying Blue has made. And shout out to Ben Lipsey, who runs that program, continues to be an innovator and a thinker in an environment where it is not always easy to be an innovator and someone who can execute on that. Like in the last Air France KLM earnings call, they made a specific call out that U.S.-based transfer revenue from all of the credit card programs and their partners with everybody was a unique opportunity that they were trying to continue to take advantage of. And in his mind, I think, again, haven't confirmed this with him, but he's saying, hey, in order to get all this transfer revenue coming to me versus all of the other international programs that are out there, to do something that's worthy of people paying attention. And I think he continues to execute on that by opening up this space. And I'm sure, and I'm hopeful, that he's going to continue to see success from all the people transferring their Citi, Chase, Capital One, American Express, Bilt points over to Flying Blue. And that what do we often see happens in the airline industry? What one person does, everybody else follows. Wouldn't it be wonderful if all of this space just continued to open up and rates got lower? That would be awesome.
Yeah, I think of it as, if you think back to the moves that Air Canada Aeroplan made just 3-4 years ago, it seems like to me that Ben at Air France has taken a page out of that book and seen a way to, really get the attention of the massive American travel and, more importantly, credit card market. It's been the same thing. Those are two of, if not the top three, certainly the top 5 airline programs in the world right now. That's not an accident.
And neither has been coming from Aeroplan to run Flying Blue. That's where it all keeps going.
Yeah, I'd say two things, and I'm going to contradict myself here, which Richard will tell you I frequently do. The reason why I don't necessarily think lots of airlines will follow this is because, to your point, Richard, Ben is, fairly forward thinking. And I think, what I've seen, at least in the Air France stuff, is while there is a plentiful release of seats, it's definitely somewhat targeted, somewhat strategic. And so I imagine, knowing a little bit about Ben, that they've got, reasoning behind what they're doing there. And I do feel like the larger carriers, the Uniteds, the Deltas, the Americans, think about things in a much more monolithic 30,000 foot approach. And so I don't know that they would try to find targeted ways to offer periodic deals. in some cases using United, it's like, if they offer, a special fare deal once a year, that's their version of targeted. As I say this while we're recording, Thrifty Traveler Premium just released another alert for 55,000 miles each way on Condor in business class to Frankfurt. So apparently,
world's best looking airplanes. Yeah, like those.
Yeah, they're very striped, very, 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 very striped.
Dr. Seuss planes.
Yeah, clearly other airlines are playing in this, sub 75,000 mile space and trying to test it out. I still feel like Air France KLM probably is a bit more forward thinking in how they want to do this than a lot of the other airlines that are out there.
Well, and I think they have to be, right. Here in the States, United, American, Delta, they have their entrenched customer base, and the people who have and are continually swiping their credit cards. They don't really need to do anything to get that loyalty. They've just got it because United's huge in Dulles and they're the only game in town, the same way that Delta is the only game in town in Atlanta, where Richard is, and Minneapolis here for me. But,
thanks for reminding me, Kyle. Thanks for reminding me that I have a steady diet of planes with broken Wi-Fi on United. I appreciate that.
Living the good life in Dulles, man. That's you got it. No, but I do think, and I hope, knock on wood, that while United and American and Delta may not look at Air France and be like, oh, hey, we could do that, because they don't need to, other airline programs hopefully will.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope so. I'm not terribly optimistic that we'll see a widespread trend here, but I mean, if there is a level of downturn in the industry, then we may see this. And there are some little nibblings that there's a reduction in demand coming in the second half of the year. The only thing that might tamp that demand is also the fact that because there's a slowdown in delivery of aircraft, that there is a possibility that at least to some degree capacity may shrink along with demand in some relative ratio that keeps the bottom from falling out and causing these airlines to try and clear miles off their balance sheet. It's going to be an interesting dance over the next 6 to 9 months.
Kind of always the case in the airline industry, right? Although I don't know if this is a dance that we've ever seen before.
No,
given all the churn.
It is a unique one, and I mean, like, we haven't even really talked about the we know there's reduction in capacity in narrow body, but I mean we are in the meat of what was supposed to be the 777X delivery schedule, and so as we continue to go month by month, there's a number of wide bodies that aren't coming into the market, so that continues. These planes will continue to stay in service to some degree, which is going to have an impact. I'm just not sure what yet.
The impact of that is Cal and I are going to be stuck flying Delta 767-300s for years to come, rather than switching over to nice new airplanes.
You guys, we were trying to make this a nice conversation. I'm trying to be positive, and then you got to hit me with that. Ugh.
It's a lovely ride.
Yeah,
circa 1988.
The great thing is if they got everything worked out in the 777X tomorrow, it still wouldn't change how long you're going to fly those 763s. I was actually on Dots, Lines, and Destinations this past week, and they were talking about the 763s, and Seth had talked about the week previously about that they're going to be working their way out of the fleet by the quote unquote end of the decade. And of course, my response to that was, knowing Delta, it will be as late as possible in that time horizon.
Which decade are we talking about there?
Yeah,
that's a fair point. That's a fair point. Put it this way: I would be willing to bet that both of my kids are in college while your kids, Richard, are still flying 763s in business class, in the old coffin class. That's my guess.
That's right, because I am so much younger than you. That's a good point.
Well, my kids are older than yours, so there's that too. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the new Thrifty Traveler product. And I think the interesting thing here is that when I think about the space, like, there are lots of people that have played in the award alert space for airlines, and a lot of tackle it different ways. We've got great products that help you search one-off instances. We have products that search for deals over a period of time. There are a lot of innovation in the space, but there hasn't been a ton of innovation in hotel alerts. And I think there hasn't even been a ton of innovation in hotel search. The folks that started AutoSlash came out with Hotel Slash. So there's been a little bit of nibbling around in this space, but for the most part, there hasn't been a ton of focus here. A lot of it's been more on, hey, how do I get there, and what deals are out there for finding the best flights. So it's one of those things. I frame all that up to say that the addition of a hotel alert package to Thrifty Traveler Premium was certainly music to my ears, and I think something that I think is probably well overdue in this space.
Yeah, look, I mean, it is a lot harder in large part because the scope is just massive. And
Yeah.
where do you draw the line? Are you, just looking for, bookable award deals at the major chains? Do you go into choice? Do you go into cash deals, which opens up not just a can of worms, but a mountain of them?
Yeah.
And so, we just decided now was the time. And fundamentally, we are selfish people at Thrifty Traveler. We want to solve our own problems. We want to get the deals that we want to book because the reality is we absolutely get high on our own supply. We book the deals that we send all of you guys. And so this just felt like a gap in the market that people were looking for. And the response so far, though it's early, I think clearly says exactly what you said, Ed, that people are looking for this, that they want this help. And so we're taking our stab at addressing this problem for people because that's what we try to do. We try to solve people's problems.
Give us a breakdown of like the mechanics in the subscription. So what is it? What does it get you? What can you set? How can you personalize? And what's that going to run folks?
Yeah. So for now, we're focusing on the 4 major programs: Hyatt, Hilton, Marriott, IHG, all award deals only. You can personalize based on which of the 4 major chains that you want. And, we're searching every single day for, some of the top properties, all-inclusives, brand new properties, and trying to find where there's good amounts of award space to send out to people so they can book it using their points or their free night certificates. Every deal has a lot of detail of, how to use those 4th and 5th night free on award stays, which award certificates to apply, some of the perks from holding status or different credit cards that you can get. And, it's an optional $24.99 a year add-on for existing Thrifty Traveler premium members. So when you sign up, you can decide whether or not to add this. If you've been a long time Thrifty Traveler premium member getting flight deals, you have the option to add this in, but it's not available as a standalone.
Are there any properties that have surprised you so far that people are looking for? I would imagine we've seen some of the same Park Hyatts that everybody wants, some of the same Andazes, some of the same Conrads, but is there anything you're like, wow, there's a lot of people looking for this property?
We don't have visibility into that just yet because it's just like the flight alerts. It's purely just on here's what we found. You can send it. I think this is really new still, and we're still kind of gauging exactly where the demand is going to shift as we start doing more of this, but it's going to keep getting better. So we're definitely looking for input directly from people. Just like, we hear from people all the time, like, hey, I haven't seen a deal to Thailand recently. And so we start looking a little bit more for those Thailand award deals or those Thailand cash fares. The same is going to be true, we hope, for hotel alerts, that as we start sending more of these, we're going to hear more from our members, and we're going to keep adding more features and filters so people can really get what they want. But we're still in the early innings of this.
That's a request from a business for points and miles people to be louder. You don't hear that very often, as we are quite naturally loud people.
Yeah, usually the opposite. I did sign up for the hotel alert product, and I popped through some things. If you're watching the show on YouTube, you can see this recent deal that they posted for Conrad Bora Bora Nui. Bora Bora, Tahiti, these are like very aspirational places that pop up for folks quite a bit in terms of the dream places to go. I thought what was interesting and helpful about this was on subsequent screens, as I scrolled down through the award alert, it wasn't just how many points it was to book it. It wasn't just when it was available to book. There was a sample calendar. But there were also, I thought, a few helpful things, including, hey, you can use your resort credits from XYZ credit card to book your boat transfers to this property. So there were some additional nuggets along the way that I'd say help folks who maybe don't have all the bits and pieces worked out like the three of us do, and make it even more valuable for them to be able to book one of these deals and sort of walk them through it to get the most value out of it.
And I hope that's what sets everything we do apart. Like, we're real people. Real people are looking at every single deal that we send, every line of text, every tip. And in this case, I booked the Conrad Bora Bora Nui myself just a couple of months ago and stayed there in February. It was amazing, but I also learned a lot of things that are in the text of that deal alert that we sent to members in the end of June, like using a resort credit to pay for what's otherwise like $160 round trip for an adult to get from the Bora Bora airport to the Conrad. We use that to basically cover the cost. So those are the things that you can't get from a service, of which there are many, that isn't looking at every single line of text and backed up by the expert guidance that we like to think we provide.
I just helped somebody use their Hyatt points to book a trip to the Park Hyatt Maldives, and I said, "Oh, by the way, since there's 5 of y'all and everybody's $5.99 round trip for those seaplane transfers, just keep that in mind." Anyway, wait a minute, what? And I was like, "Yeah,
Stock up those Capital One Venture X miles to wipe away that $3,000 charge." Mr. Kerr, you got to go.
Yes, sir. It is. As time of recording, happy rent day to everybody. It tends to be a pretty busy day when Ed said let's record. I said, sounds great, without looking at my calendar, because sometimes I'm just not a smart pickle leg guy, and here we are.
And there's one more pickle reference, just because. Well, hopefully you're walking by the time that this airs, Mr. Kerr.
It'll be great. Always great to see you, Kyle. Appreciate everything you guys do over at Thrifty Traveler. I'm very excited for the latest hotel alerts coming out.
Yeah, thanks, man.
All right, so if folks are watching online, you can see a QR code on the bottom of the screen. There's links in the show notes to Thrifty Traveler Premium. As Kyle mentioned, it's effectively a bolt-on product right now, so you can't buy hotel alerts as a standalone, but you can buy Thrifty Traveler Premium. You can use our code GO10 to get $10 off your first year of Thrifty Traveler Premium, and then you can add on the hotel deals as well. So as I said, you can either scan the QR code on the screen, or you can find a link in the show notes. Kyle, I think the thing that has me has my mind just spinning on this sort of stuff is, when you think about that first time I looked at the screen of offers, and I'll pull it back up here on the screen with us, I wasn't even thinking about some of these properties. So I wasn't aware of this Waldorf in Costa Rica. I know there are plenty of Waldorfs around the world. My daughter happened to take a trip recently to Costa Rica, and I'd given some recommendations on properties, and I didn't even include this. I was thinking, more along the lines of things like Andaz Papagayo and stuff like that. And so, immediately I started to think about this concept of, well, gosh, I mean, this might help me, window shop, if you will, on where I want to go next for properties I might not otherwise have considered.
Right. And that's the thing is, there are a growing number of search services out there, many of which I use and love and respect. And whether you're talking about hotels or flights, it relies on knowing something's out there. In order to know that Waldorf in Costa Rica was bookable back when it was, using one of those services, you would have to even know that hotel was opening, let alone go to your favorite search tool and search it manually or set up an alert to get an alert when something like that happens.
Right.
We've designed the entire service, both on the flight deal side and hotels, to really start to expand people's horizons and put new options in front of them. So our hope is that with hotels, we'll get the same response that we've gotten about our flight deal alerts for years, which is, even again, selfishly for me, I did not have plans to go to Colombia in the winter of 2021. But we found a flight deal to do that for $218 round trip from Minneapolis, which is absurd. So when we found that flight deal, I woke my wife up and I was like, I figured out what we're doing. The same thing is true. And, you go through that list of different hotel deals. I mean, it runs the gamut from, a brand new Waldorf in Costa Rica that just opened and only recently opened up some award availability to, on the newer end, an older property in New York City, which just recently reflagged from Hilton. It was the Conrad Midtown, which people love to use their Hilton points and free night certificates on. Switched over to Marriott in the beginning of June, and it took a couple of weeks of that switchover changing for award inventory to actually open with Marriott points. We were checking that every single day. And when it finally did, I mean, my jaw dropped on the floor, expecting to see 100,000 points a night. It was bookable for, it was bookable for 34,000 points a night in the summer.
Wow.
And again, let's talk about selfish. I was checking that every single day because I had the Conrad Midtown booked. Hilton canceled my reservation. And so I'm just waiting to see if this happens. And so we get to do both. We get to serve our own selfish interests and we get to help people too, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, for folks who are thinking about signing on to the service, I'd say that's the key element for me is I know lots of folks who don't have the time or the energy to spend researching this stuff. I don't have the time, but I certainly have the energy. And so I take valuable time clicking through and searching for things that I probably shouldn't be taking the time from other parts of my life to do. And so having a push notification on when there are great deals out there is a great thing. And I think I would also encourage folks, regardless of whether you sign up for either of these products. I think the biggest thing that I've always tried to help folks think about, like shift the thinking on, we have this phrase, I don't even remember who the first person that said it to me was, but it's this philosophy of chasing the fare, not the destination. And it's, like, hey, like the families wanted to go to Japan for a number of years. I could never find 4 business class seats to Japan. So we always went somewhere else where I could find something. And then when 4 business class seats to Japan popped up, well, then we did Japan. And I'm just a firm believer in we're going to get to all the places, eventually. And so I'm always looking for, forecasting our next travel based on wherever the next deal is. And that's where I think the value comes from things like this.
It's huge, having that level of flexibility to just take advantage of the deal when it comes up, knowing that you're going to end up somewhere spectacular, even if it wasn't option 1A on your list. Maybe it's 1B, maybe it's 2. It's all gravy, right? At the end of the day, especially when you're booking something for pennies on the dollar or just using your points and getting a really, really cool special experience out of it, whether you're flying solo or traveling with your family. That's the whole ball game.
Well, and if there's one and maybe only one really great thing that we got out of COVID, it's that most change and cancellation fees went out the door and have surprisingly stayed fairly dormant. And so with a lot of these things, your risk is only really in your ability to, have enough points to book whatever your backup or your alternative plan is. And so there's almost never a cost associated with canceling awards nowadays, and there's a lot of flexibility to change stuff. So always when I see deals like this, I always encourage people, you want to look at the T's and C's first, but book first and ask questions later is typically a frequent mantra of mine.
That should be on a tombstone somewhere. Not yours, it's too early, but somewhere, and then you can borrow that tombstone when it's your time. It's great. And look, the flexibility is huge, but worst case scenario, there's a ton of education in getting alerts like this of learning of a different property that might work for the next time, or just like learning a little bit more about how to use your points and miles and cash and whatever else, a lot more wisely. We hear from a lot of people, and have for many, many years, that maybe have booked one deal over the years, maybe haven't booked any, but they love it because they learn what it costs to get somewhere or better ways to do it, even if they don't end up booking it themselves, which, at the end of the day, if that's what the takeaway is, and it makes you a better, smarter traveler and helps you get to where you do want to go for less, or get to more places that you want to go, that's a big win.
Yep. No, I would agree. Well, I don't want to put you on the spot just yet. I'm going to ask you about your future travel plans here in just a second, but quick giveaway for folks who are members of our Slack community. If you're listening into the show or watching and you're a member of our Slack community, or if you sign up before we do the giveaway, I'm going to be giving away, for folks who are existing Thrifty Traveler Premium members, I'm going to be giving away a gift card for 5 of you to upgrade to the Hotel Alerts product. So 5 folks who are members of the Slack community are going to get a chance to join Hotel Alerts and give me honest feedback about what they think about the product over the next year. And we'll be doing that in the Slack community here shortly. For folks that aren't a member, come join our happy hours on a weekly basis. We've got a bunch of different Slack channels, discussions ongoing on all these different things, including a hotel deals channel where we frequently talk about our favorite strategies for how to book all these great properties. And it's sort of our version of Patreon that you can help support the show for just a couple bucks a month. Links to that in the show notes. So Kyle, I told you I got Japan planned this summer, thankfully from you guys with the alerts. Got anything cool on the horizon for you and your family booked?
Got a couple of little things over the summer, going with my brother-in-law to catch a concert in New York, staying at that Conrad Midtown, New York. Quick trip out to San Francisco and Napa with the wife as she's on a work trip. Napa. The big one, we're just pretty much staying put otherwise, because you're seeing me in a house that we've owned for a grand total of about 3 weeks. So lots to do here, but next year, going back to Istanbul, can't wait. Went a couple of years ago for 2 nights, and it was not even close to enough. And then hopping down to South Africa for some safari in Cape Town. Really looking forward to that in January.
Yeah, I'm actually hoping both of those are on my radar next year as well, because I've had 2 trips canceled to Istanbul after spending a very brief period of time there like you did, and just like really understanding the incredible potential of spending time in Istanbul and just having not made it back yet. And then Safari was the other thing that was on our radar this year before the Tokyo fairs popped up for us. So Safari is still the big family trip we haven't done quite yet. Yeah. And with one daughter in college, I figure I've got got to up my game to make sure she wants to come home for summer break with us as opposed to going somewhere else, because while we were recording, she was texting me to tell me that for the first time ever, without Dad, she cleared customs back into the U.S. on her own, coming back from that Costa Rica trip with friends. And so she's already feeling her freedom, and I got to make sure that I up my game so she wants to come spend her summers with us instead of going and hanging with her friends somewhere.
Yeah, proud dad moment, but pressure's on, man.
Very, very proud dad moment. Well, Kyle, thanks a bunch for being on the show. I'll look forward to hearing about your Istanbul and your South Africa trips. And in fact, I may plagiarize them pretty heavily since I haven't planned either one of those yet. For folks who are riding along with us, links, like I said, in the show notes to how to sign up for Thrifty Traveler Premium and how to check out the Hotel Alerts product. Lots more to come over the next few weeks. Well, we'll have a couple of pre-recorded episodes while I'm in Tokyo. So look for some primer episodes on some of the programs that we love quite a bit. In fact, the one from Kyle and Richard's home bases of Minneapolis and Atlanta will be doing a deep dive into Delta. Whole lot more coming down the pike until we upload again. We've got miles to go.
It's what's underneath the hat that counts, Ed.
That's what she said.
I don't even know what that means.